Welcome to the Hachette podcast. I'm Brandon.
In January.
And we have 26 days until Birth Without Fear publishes.
That's awesome. I feel like that's really, really close and really, really far away at the same time.
I know. I think it's feeling very far away to me more than it is feeling close.
Okay. Yeah.
But it will be here before I know it, I'm sure.
That was very insightful. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Well, on our last episode, we talked about choosing a provider.
Yes, we did.
Right. And now we're going to talk about chapter 2, which is advocating for yourself, second trimester without fear. And this is, of course, from the upcoming Birth Without Fear book. Like you said, releases March 5th. So advocating for yourself, I'm sure you can take some guesses as to what this chapter is about, but it's definitely a time of thinking about self-driven education, is the way I put it in the book. Because during the second trimester, you're going to be asked a lot of questions. You're going to ask a lot of questions. You're going to be faced with a lot of different choices. You know, there's tests, there's all sorts of things. And then throughout the second trimester, you're going to make sure that you want to make sure that your relationship with your provider is staying in the space of support and respect. And that goes both ways, of course. So it's a really interesting time in the second trimester. You start showing, well, maybe not everyone, everyone's different, but you might start showing on, you might still be sick. You might not be sick. You know, there's all these different variations of normal in that second trimester. But what I want to share from the book is a little story of the second trimester in our 6th pregnancy.
Okay.
When I went in, so we had co-care with midwives and with an OB because that's what my instincts told me to do. And so I had gone in for a visit with the OB, and this story is about that visit. Ready?
I'm ready. Go.
On one visit to my OB, the nurse, whom I've never met before, called me in and took me right to the scale. I politely said no, and then gestured toward my body in Vanna White fashion and said, "See all this? I'm good with this." She appeared flustered and did her best to convince me I had to be weighed. But I stood my ground. It has taken me a long time to love myself and my body, and there is nothing that number is going to determine about my care and my baby's care. If you need to give me an epidural, I'll let you know how much I weigh. That's on a need-to-know basis. She must have understood my determination because she nervously replied, "I'll just write patient refuses on your chart." And when we met with our OB a few minutes later, I told him, "I'm not going to be weighed for you. There's no reason you need to know an exact number of how much I weigh today." And he laughed. He got a good kick out of that. And he said, "No, you're absolutely right. There is no reason why we need to know how much you weigh today."
I do remember that. She just stared at you, blinked, couldn't quite figure out what to say.
Right.
But
because there's a certain way that things are done, and when a patient especially, wants things to do a little bit differently, sometimes care providers or staff don't know how to respond to that, and so that's where the options comes into play, and then having a discussion so there can be an informed decision. But for me personally, being a plus size pregnant mom and birthing person, I felt that at that time I had done a lot of work on my self-love, and that getting on that scale might have taken that away from me. And for what? There was no reason to do that at the time. So, and my cervix and my vagina never asked me what my BMI was. Never was like, knock, knock, knock. "January, can you please let us know how much you weigh today so we know if we can open up and let this baby out?" Brandon, that just never happened. You're shaking your head. Do you not know how to respond to that?
Well, I was trying to wait for the witty remark.
I think mine was witty enough for both of us.
Yeah. I was just waiting for it to show up, and it just never did. So,
but many of us
covered it. Thank
you. Many of us work really hard to feel good about ourselves, and in an instant, a careless comment or assumption, can take that away. And
Well, weighing yourself on a scale or tracking your BMI are two of the more useless measurements to base anything on.
Well, and that's the thing is, we tested my health in many other ways in that pregnancy. And so, but here's, I think, the highlight of this whole thing that I've shared is that my OB completely respected my decision to not be weighed and understood my why. And there was no rude comment. There was no shameful comment. There was nothing but completely respectful care. And that is what we want with our care providers. And if he had had a concern, he would have sat there and taken the time to patiently and respectfully share that concern with me. And I would have listened to him and then made an informed choice. And that might have been the same choice I had made, or maybe I would have changed my mind to make a different choice if I had different information laid out in front of me. Absolutely. And that's okay too. So that is from chapter 2 of the Birth of That Fear book. Until next time.
Adios.
Love ya.